I want to tell you peculiarities of the translation of the infinitive and infinitive constructions in English text of technical style. We live in the age of scientific and technical progress, development of computer technologies, digital television. Technology has made us powerful, and Ukraine doesn't lag behind other countries and depends its knowledge in the study of the scientific and technical style of language in various spheres of technical activity, without which international communication at the level of the modern technological and information sphere is impossible. The purpose of the work is to clarify the peculiarities of the translation of the infinitive in the technical text with the help of grammatical transformations, in particular the replacement of a part of a sentence. The main practical tasks for achieving the goal of the work are to determine the future of the technical text, consider the translation of the infinitive in the technical text, to study grammatical transformations, then translating the technical text. Translation as a type of speech activity. Translation is one of the most important ways of interaction of national cultures. It is a way of intercultural communication. To translate means to accurately and meaningfully expressed by the means of one language what has already been recorded by the means of another language in an inseparable unity of content and form. A correct translation conveys the content of the original, its style, while meeting all the norms of the literary language. The main types of translation. Translation written from written material, oral interpretation from oral content, simultaneous translation, sequential translation of oral from written material, written translation from oral material. Peculiarities of translation of scientific and technical texts. Scientific and technical texts are characterized by a special style and distinguishes them from other types of texts. When translating such texts, this feature creates additional difficulties and problems. The main difficulty of translating scientific and technical texts, namely the translation of terms, consists in the disclosure and transmission of regional realities using the Ukrainian language. First, it is necessary to establish exactly what the problem described in the foreign language translation is and what the problem of the presentation in the translation are. Among the lexical difficulties of scientific and technical translation, scientists single out the ambiguity of words, terms, and the choice of an adequate dictionary counterpart of translation variant of a word, the peculiarities of the use of common words in scientific and the technical texts, the correct application of one or another method of translating vocabulary, determining the limit of admissibility of translation lexical transformations, translation of neologism, terms, abbreviations. Grammatical differences include features of the grammatical structure of the language, forms, and the traditions of written scientific communication. Concept of scientific and technical style. The task of scientific and technical translation is to convey the content of the original as accurately as possible. This can be done in 3 stages. To think like the author about the problem, trying to understand its essence, correctly convey the content of the original, choosing the most accurate equivalence of terms and commonly used words. The following requirements are made for scientific and technical translation. The translation must be accurate but not literal or verbatim. It is not individual words of the original that are translated, but its content. Adequate transmission of the content of the original is a defining requirement for scientific and technical translation. Clarity, double content in scientific and technical translation is unacceptable. Its style must be fully correspond to the formal and logical style of the language of scientific and technical literature. Implementing this requirement that is making a clear and precise translation is possible only when the content of the original is fully clarified. Scientific and technical translation should be concise. Literacy of the translation is compliance with the norms of the language of translation. And these requirements are the main requirements for scientific and technical translation. Only the translation that corresponds to it can be considered complete and adequate. Grammatical transformations. Grammatical transformations are methods of transforming an English sentence into syntactic structures characteristic of the Ukrainian language. All varieties of grammatical transformations can be reduced to the following categories: changing the order of words, replacing nouns, replacing adjectives and adverbs, adding words for grammatical reasons, extraction of words, and replacement of a sentence structure for lexical reasons. The concept of the infinitive in the English language, the infinitive from the Latin infinitus, indefinite, undefined, is a verb from that expressed part of a predicate, as well as words with a predicate meaning in the position of noun clauses. Infinitive in English can be used in 6 special forms, corresponding to 4 types of verbs. Infinitives of transitive verbs can have active and passive forms. For example, infinitive in the active state, infinitive or simple infinitive. I'm glad to meet Peter. I was glad to meet Peter. I will be glad to meet Peter. Continuous or progressive infinitive. For example, the weather seems to be changing. The weather seemed to be changing. He will be glad to be swimming in a cool pool right now. Perfect infinitive. For example, it's very nice of Matt to have come to us. It's very nice of Matt to have come to us. She will pretend to have lost all her money. Perfect continuous infinitive. For example, Jack seems to have been living here since his childhood. I was glad to have been working here for 10 years. Paul will be happy to have been working here for all his life. The infinitive is in the passive state. For example, she ought to be told the truth. This letter needs to be written today. I like to be given a lot of presents when I was small. Passive perfect infinitive. This house seems to have been rebuilt already. I supposed the work to have been done by the time. This book must have been written by Dickens. And what about functions of the infinitive in a sentence? The infinitive in the English language performs a number of functions in the sentence in functions as subject, predicate, addition, definition, circumstance, insert, construction. Infinitive constructions. In modern English, there are 3 constructions of inflections with the infinitive: the object infinitive inflection, complex object; the subject infinitive inflection, complex subject; the independent infinitive inflections, infinitive with the preposition for. Analysis of the peculiarities of the translation of the infinitive based on technical text. For example, the indefinite infinitive active group includes 78 examples of the infinitive, including 51 indefinite infinitive active with the particle to, and 19 infinitive active without the particle to. For example, in most cases, the structural members are designed to carry loads rather than side. Then it is to be subjected to tension or compression rather than bending. The indefinite infinitive passive group includes 18 examples of the infinitive, among them 4 infinitive passive with the particle to, and 14 indefinite infinitive passive without the particle to. For example, in most cases, the structural members are designed to carry loads rather than sides, that is to be subject to tension or compression rather than bending. The continuous infinitive active group includes one example and the infinitive which is used with the particle to. So, if the universe were infinite in space, points sufficiently far from the exist would have to be rotating faster than light. And we can see the picture. Next, we can see the forms of infinitive and present in such column. Analysis of the infinitive by function in the sentence. The infinitive of as the subject occurs one time in the sentence. The infinitive as a predicate occurs 45 times in such sentences. The infinitive group as a predicate includes sentences with the complex subject construction. See examples of the infinitive. The infinitive in the role of an application occurs 4 times in such sentences. The group of infinitive in the role of the appendix included sentences with the construction complex object. See examples of the infinitive. The infinitive in the role of circumstance occurs 23 times. Among them there are circumstances of purpose and result and consequences. The sentence with the construction with the preposition for was included in the infinitive group as a circumstance. The infinitive as a designation occurs 6 times and is used to be describe objects and phenomena. And thank you for attention.